right, let's talk about this Wolverine game. I sat and thought about it for a while, and now that the dust has settled, you know, with all the big Sony gaming announcements last week, let's dive in. I wanted to talk about this with you guys. I don't usually like speculate or talk too deep on just announcement, CGI, pre-rendered cutscene trailers. Like, that's all we got. But even just from that little bit and knowing from who's behind it, this is potentially really exciting. Like, a big budget Wolverine game is kind of a big deal. The last one we got technically was the one based on X-Men Origins Wolverine. That was in 2009. That game was super underrated. You've probably heard this a million times by now, but surprisingly great considering the movie it was based on. But I love Wolverine. Like, this isn't gonna come as a surprise to a lot of you guys. You know me by now. For me, when I was growing up, like really, really young, for me, the big trinity was Batman, Spider-Man, and Wolverine. Like, those were the three heroes I was exposed to the most first at a young age, and I just was them endlessly for Halloween and obsessed over them. And Wolverine's a really complex character and a hard one to pull off for a lot of things. So I'm really excited to see what Insomniac can do with this. So it's being led by Insomniac heads. This time it's also being led by the person who specifically directed Spider-Man Miles Morales. And it's got people from Spider-Man PS4 behind it. And I think that's why, potentially, this is the most exciting. So for me, and again, stop me if you've heard this already, but the reason why I liked Insomniac Spider-Man for PS4 so much was because it told a specifically Spider-Man-ass Peter Parker story, not derivative of the movies that inspire everything. It felt like a Spider-Man story with Spider-Man problems, and it took Spider-Man risks in a way that I thought a comic book specifically would. So for a Wolverine game to take that same approach is incredibly exciting, because back in the day, Wolverine games that we got, or games featuring Wolverine, were comic book as hell. So if we do that again, but like with Insomniac's modern storytelling spin on things and just modern video game-ness, it could be really exciting. Of course, initially the whole conversation was like, this better be gory, and it most likely is. You know, think about it. The trailer showed blood. It showed a bunch of dead dudes on the ground. The developers are saying mature. So, I mean, it may not be rated M, but you can still get away with a lot. And for me personally, as long as I see blood drawn, I think that's pretty good. I talked about this in the Sony announcement video, but for me, there have been plenty of Wolverine stories that have been told without Wolverine literally cutting people's heads off and ripping their guts out. But like, as an adult now who often likes to see more mature tales, like, sure, let's do it. I think it's good either way. But if there is gore, cool. One thing that I do think is worthy of discussion is the Easter eggs in the trailer. There's a statue that is possibly an Easter egg, but the big one that has a lot of people buzzing and has me excited is the one that is a Hulk reference. It's Hulk, and it's the issue number of the Incredible Hulk with Wolverine's first, technically, full appearance. He was teased in the one before that. But if this is a game with like a Hulk focus, and kind of like if they can take a Hulk versus Wolverine thing, which in the past, in many things, they've been pitted as bitter rivals and very much like a primal thing. If the game could make a whole story about that, like an emotional tale between them, or some sort of team up, whatever, dude, I'm really interested in that, especially maybe even from like a gameplay story hook. So when I see this, I get excited because you think of Wolverine and think of Bruce Banner. There are a lot of interpretations of Bruce Banner as like the wandering man in search of something, or just wandering around and trying to get control of things, and often helping people along the way. I'm dating myself, but like the 70s TV show is a good example. Or even really honestly what he was doing in the beginning of the Edward Norton Hulk movie. That is also very much Wolverine, the lone wanderer in search of often answers. I think there could be something here with a lot of people speculating, like, what is this game going to play like? What is this going to be like? Is it going to be Wolverine roaming in search of something, or just not even in search of something, just being Wolverine and being awesome and drinking at a bar? Who knows? I think at this point, I'm over, like, I don't need to see Wolverine go after his creators or the people who wronged him. I think there's so much more room to tell a unique and different story, and I'm really betting that they're gonna go for that. You know, we've heard enough of the Weapon X program, of Stryker, and all those things in various different interpretations. I think it's time for a different story, and you know, the other thing is like a lot of people are saying like, is it going to be open world? Are you going to be like Wolverine and you're going to get more skills as you go? And on the one hand, I'd like just like a fully formed badass Wolverine, and then the game it just challenges you and tells an interesting story. But yeah, okay, if there's skill progression, whatever, it's a video game in 2022 or 2023 when it's going to release. So it's kind of a given. But open world, I don't know if I necessarily want to see unless they can figure out a great way to do it. I don't know if this is popular or not, but like really just a linear adventure with Logan doing his thing. And again, where could this go? Especially with the Hulk possibly being linked or rumored and involved. Could we get an Old Man Logan story? No disrespect to Logan, the movie. A lot of people really love it. And what it took from the Old Man Logan stories and did with its, you know, spin on it really, really worked. But like the real book, like the real Old Man Logan story kicks the pants off of Logan. And if they can do that and go full in and go full comic book and go full Marvel. But on the other hand, as a little play down, I'd rather just see Wolverine in his prime being Wolverine, you know? I'm kind of all over the place with this, but there's just a lot. Like, as someone who dressed up as Wolverine for Halloween, like, I'm excited. So they could also start to do the thing, like Insomniac could be building out a little bit of a Marvel universe here, you know? Like, we've talked about this a million times, and there's been so much speculation. But if you do this Spider-Man, right? And then you have this Wolverine in the same world, that could be pretty cool, especially to see like a modern Wolverine interact with a modern Peter Parker. That is something I would very much like to see. Also, shout out to the Wolverine symbiote from Web of Shadows. Man, that was amazing. But I think overall what I'm looking for here is a game that can at least give you the sense of Wolverine or Logan, a man not belonging, a man who is always, at the end of the day, kind of mostly maybe gonna do the right thing, but it's a little murky and it's a little brutal and he's definitely got some issues, but ultimately he is technically a hero, but he's always in these positions where his bad side can come out. And I think what is really exciting about this is introducing people to more of the real Wolverine or Logan. I said this in my other video, but like, you know, what we got from the trailer was like cowboy hat, drinking at a bar, bloody knuckles, flannel shirt, hopefully stockier, hopefully shorter, hopefully hairier. That like, there's something totally different about Wolverine compared to Hugh Jackman's. And again, no slight on Hugh Jackman. I think that he is perfect. I think that he, like some other very select few people who portray comic book characters, really embody it and really become it and like take over the mind share of that character. But I think there's a lot of fun in people being introduced to the more classic style Wolverine as well. He's a little bit gruffer. He talks a little bit less. And I wonder how far they're gonna go with that. I wonder who's gonna voice this Wolverine. Somebody in my comments, shout out to you, was like, what if it is Hugh Jackman? Because, you know, like he said, so he always plays around with how he's not maybe done. I don't know. That could be a thing, but I think there's room for a new talent, a new approach, a new spin. It's also kind of jarring when they take famous actors of, you know, comic book interpretations and then they put their voice in a totally different looking or different version of that character. I always think of the Punisher game, which is an incredible game, but it's like real ass, good ass, like war journal Punisher, voiced by Thomas Jane Punisher, which is like weird but cool. I don't know. What I'm saying is Wolverine should have a voice actor. There's a couple of very specific people that come to mind who have voiced him in various interpretations. It's a very iconic voice, and they play it very, you know, they definitely in the past have chosen wisely. And so I'm saying go for like one of those people and not just Troy Baker again, please. On a little bit of a more selfish note, I would also like to see, I really like the Wolverine in Japan stuff. It's been explored from World War II and beyond in different arcs. I think that's kind of an interesting thing. The Wolverine movie explored it, and I think that movie's really underrated with how it did a lot of that. Yes, the end of the movie kind of fell apart, but like that's the one before Logan that people don't really mention, but it was kind of like the setup to Logan that I really appreciated. But it can go much further. There's way more to that tale. There was way more behind Wolverine or Logan to those tales. And I think a video game could really do it justice. I think that's ultimately where I would maybe like to see it, where you know, again, I'm saying like Wolverine going around being a wandering badass man, but also if they could do it where it's not just locked to one location, one situation, I would almost like a little bit of a greatest hits thing of Logan and the places he's been, from living for a long period of time to being in the X-Men. Maybe they could set that up at the end. I don't know. To being in Japan, to being in Canada, to being in the United States. Like, he's a man about town. He finds himself in various places, and they could do a lot with that. And I think they'd be doing themselves a disservice to just lock him to one area. But if it allows for the story to be more focused, then fine. So be it. But you see what I'm getting at here? And I haven't even gotten into what the hell it would even play like. All I would really like to see is some of that damage stuff from X-Men Origins Wolverine, with how, you know, chunks of Logan's body will literally rip away and you can see his adamantium rib cage and shit. That's cool. Give me that, please. If we're gonna do gore, just give me that. I would love to see the game somehow mechanically play around with Logan's rage and his restraint. One of the best things kind of embodying Wolverine, I thought, at least in modern interpretations like the movies, was in X-Men 2 when he like stabs the guy up against the fridge, and it's kind of like, whoa, holy shit. Like it's like, it scares you. It shows you who he really is. But if the game can kind of play around mechanically with how it goes back and forth with whether or not he's stabbing to kill or holding back, you know, maybe it's like it will put you in a situation in a bar where somebody says, "Get out of my bar, freak," and you can choose whether or not to slaughter the whole bar or scare the shit out of them and leave or do nothing. I don't know. There's something there that they could really mess around with. They could also go in a completely different direction and involve Daken and get crazy. I don't know, but can you tell I'm really excited? And it's early, but I am willing to look forward to something like this because of the track record with Insomniac, because of the fact that we haven't had a Wolverine game in a long time. And honestly, the way I go with games like this, with comic book hero games, I play them all. Even if like some of them seem bad, I go for all of them. I jump in head first because I love these characters. I love different interpretations of these characters, and I'm a sucker for this stuff. It's probably going to be a very long time before we hear more about this game. It's definitely in the early stages. I wish almost they didn't announce it this early. Like, I'm starting to get over that. But still, I think for right now, I just wanted to put that on the record. First thoughts, the million different places that they could go, especially like if you're someone who's not as into this stuff. I just wanted to put it out there that like, it's not just X-Men, it's not just Hugh Jackman. There's so much more that they can do. It's not just another comic book thing. There's a lot that they can do here. And if they're talking about an emotional and dark tale, I think people should at least pay attention once we start getting real news about this game. But I've talked for so long. Oh my God, thank you for staying here. I really appreciate you hanging out and, you know, watching me ramble. I'm just talking about what I love here. So if you appreciate what I'm trying to do, clicking the like button's all you got to do. I would very much appreciate that. But I'm Jake. Let me know in the comments what you think. Let me know where the hell they could take this, what arcs they should be inspired by, whether or not they even should. Should it be a game that's focused completely around Wolverine versus the Hulk? Should he make a cameo appearance? Whatever, dude. Let's talk about this stuff. There's so much. My brain is buzzing, so hit me in the comments. But thank you guys for being here. I'm Jake Baldino. Subscribe because video games. Pizza's on me.